sound, something broken and painful. "I did not know. Sophia, I swear to you, I did not know." She lowered her hands, looking at him directly. "Would it have changed anything if you did?" "Yes," Anthony said without hesitation. "Everything. I would have found another way. I would have protected you both without driving you away." "I do not believe you," Sophia said, but her voice lacked conviction. "That is fair," Anthony replied. "I have given you no reason to trust me, but I am asking you to trust me now, for Lorenzo's sake, if not for yours. Stay here where Roberto cannot reach you. Let me handle this situation. Let me protect my family." "We are not your family," Sophia said automatically. "You are the mother of my son," Anthony said, his eyes intense. "That makes you family whether you accept it or not. And I protect what is mine." The possessive phrasing should have angered her. Instead, it created a warmth in her chest she did not want to acknowledge. 6 weeks had passed since the night they arrived at the Connecticut house. Sophia woke each morning to sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked dense forest, to the sound of Lorenzo's laughter echoing through rooms that no longer felt foreign. The routines they had built felt dangerously close to permanent, dangerously close to something she might call home. She worked from a small office on the second floor, headphones on, translating legal documents and technical manuals for clients who had no idea where she was physically located. The work was steady, the pay reliable, and it gave her the sense of independence she desperately needed. She was not Anthony's charity case. She was still Sophia Mitchell, professional translator, woman who took care of herself and her son. Hannah received regular video calls, Sophia carefully maintaining the fiction of a work assignment that required temporary relocation. Her friend accepted the explanation with minimal questioning, sending photos of Sophia's apartment where plants were thriving and mail was neatly stacked on the kitchen counter. Sometimes Sophia felt guilt for the lie, but mostly she felt relief that her old life continued existing somewhere, waiting for her eventual return. Lorenzo attended school online now, logging into video sessions with a teacher named Mrs. Carter, who led him through reading lessons and basic mathematics. He sat at the small desk in his room, headphones too large for his head, raising his hand to answer questions even though he was alone in front of a screen. The normalcy of it broke Sophia's heart in ways she could not articulate. Anthony moved through the house like a ghost who was learning to be solid. He worked from the study, door closed, voice occasionally rising in sharp commands in languages Sophia could identify, and some she could not. But every evening at 6 o'clock without fail, that door opened and he emerged for dinner. The awkwardness of the first week had slowly dissolved. Lorenzo had accepted Anthony's presence with the easy adaptability of childhood, asking questions that Sophia answered carefully, watching the relationship between father and son develop with emotions too complicated to name. Anthony learned Lorenzo's preferences, his routines, the specific way he liked his sandwich cut, and his juice diluted with water. Vincent visited daily, his large frame somehow gentle around Lorenzo. He brought small gifts sometimes, a toy car or a new book, claiming he had found them and thought Lorenzo might enjoy them. Lorenzo called him Uncle Vincent now, the title given freely and accepted with visible pleasure. This particular evening found Lorenzo already asleep upstairs, exhausted from a day spent playing in the yard under Vincent's watchful supervision. Sophia stood at the window in her room, looking out at darkness punctuated by security lights hidden among trees. She should sleep. Her body ached with the tiredness that came from constant vigilance, from sleeping lightly, from waiting for the other shoe to drop. But restlessness drove her downstairs instead. The living room glowed with firelight. Anthony sat on the couch, a glass of red wine in his hand, staring into flames that danced across logs. He wore jeans and a dark sweater, casual clothes that made him look younger, more approachable, though his posture remained coiled tight with tension that never fully left him. "Cannot sleep?" he asked without turning his head. "Too much thinking," Sophia replied. He rose in one fluid motion, crossed to the sideboard, and poured wine into a second glass. He held it out to her, the firelight catching in the dark liquid. Sophia took it, the crystal cool against her palm. She sat on the opposite end of the couch, pulling her legs beneath her, wrapping her cardigan tighter around her body. They drank in silence. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked, Outside, wind moved through trees with sounds like whispered conversations. "Why did it have to be so cruel?" Sophia asked quietly. The wine-loosening words she had kept locked inside. "The divorce. You could have just said you did not want to be married anymore. You did not have to humiliate me in front of my family. You did not have to tell me I was nothing." Anthony set his glass on the coffee table with careful precision, because anything less would not have worked. "You would have fought for us. You would have insisted we could fix whatever was broken. And you were so good at fixing things, at believing in people even when they did not deserve it. So you made me hate you," Sophia said. "I made you leave," Anthony corrected. "Hate was just the tool I had available." Sophia took a long drink, needing the burn of alcohol to steady herself. "You told me I was common, that I embarrassed you in front of your business associates, that marrying me had been a mistake you regretted every day." "I know what I said," Anthony replied, his voice rough. "I remember every word. They are burned into my memory. I see your face when I close my eyes, the way you looked at me when I said those things, like I had physically struck you. You might as well have," Sophia whispered. Anthony leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "My brother died 3 days before I divorced you. Marco. He was 26 years old. Someone ambushed him on a street corner in Brooklyn, shot him 6 times. I held him while he bled out on the concrete. He died in my arms, asking me to tell our mother he was sorry." The words hit Sophia like cold water. "I did not know. You never said anything about a brother. We did not talk much about family," Anthony said. "That was deliberate on my part. The less you knew, the safer you were. Or so I believed." Sophia remembered those final weeks of their marriage now through a different lens. Anthony had been distant, cold, spending nights away from their bed. She had thought he was pulling away from her specifically. Now she understood he had been drowning in grief and terror, making impossible calculations about how to protect what remained of his world. "When Marco died, I realized something," Anthony continued, staring into the fire. "Everyone I loved was a target. My mother, my cousins, you, especially you. You were so visible, so connected to me. It was only a matter of time before someone used you to hurt me. I could not survive that. I could not survive losing you the way I lost him." "So you pushed me away," Sophia said, understanding crystallizing. "You made me leave so I would be safe. It seemed logical at the time," Anthony said. "Break your heart but keep you alive. That was the trade I made." "You did not get to make that choice for me," Sophia said, anger flaring beneath the sympathy. "You did not get to decide what risks I was willing to take." "You are right," Anthony agreed, "but I was not thinking clearly. I was 29 years old and I had just watched my little brother die. Logic was not my strong suit in that moment." Sophia finished her wine, set the empty glass aside. "I was pregnant. 2 months pregnant when you threw me out. I found out a week later. Sat in a clinic bathroom, staring at a positive test and trying to figure out how I was going to survive as a single mother with no job and no place to live." Anthony made a sound like something had broken inside his chest. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because you made it very clear you wanted nothing from me," Sophia replied. "You said I was a mistake. You had security escort me from the building like I was a criminal. You froze my credit cards. You had your lawyer serve me with divorce papers that same day. What part of that suggested you wanted to know about a baby?" "Any of it," Anthony said, his voice cracking. "All of it. Sophia, if I had known, I would have found another way. I would have protected you both without driving you away. I would have moved you somewhere safe, given you security, made sure you had everything you needed, and kept me in a cage," Sophia said. "Protected but trapped. That is not a life, Anthony." "It is better than the alternative," Anthony insisted. "Is it?" Sophia challenged. "Is safety worth giving up every choice, every freedom? Is it worth living in constant fear?" They stared at each other across the small distance separating them on the couch. The fire painted Anthony's face in shades of gold and shadow, highlighting the sharp planes of his cheekbones, the strong line of his jaw. Sophia remembered touching that face, remembered the texture of his skin against her fingertips, the way his eyes would soften when he looked at her in the darkness of their bedroom. "Tell me about him," Anthony said quietly. "Tell me about Lorenzo. Tell me everything I missed." So Sophia did. She told him about pregnancy, about working 2 jobs until exhaustion made her dizzy, about labor that lasted almost a full day, about Hannah holding her hand through every contraction because she had no one else, about the first time she held Lorenzo and saw Anthony's eyes staring back at her from that tiny, wrinkled face. She told him about sleepless nights walking the floors of her small apartment, about first smiles and first words, about the terror of Lorenzo's first fever, about rushing him to the emergency room at 2 a.m, convinced he was dying, when it was just a virus that broke by morning, about first steps taken while holding onto their coffee table, about the pride that had flooded her even as she wished Anthony could be there to see it. She told him about preschool interviews, where she felt inadequate compared to other parents with their designer clothes and confident answers, about birthday parties in the community center where Lorenzo blew out candles on homemade cake and opened presents Sophia had saved for months to afford, about bedtime stories read in funny voices, about nightmares soothed, about the thousands of small moments that built a childhood. Anthony listened without interrupting. His eyes never left her face, absorbing every word like a man dying of thirst being offered water. When she finished, his jaw was rigid with emotion he fought to contain. "I am sorry," he said, the words barely audible. "I am sorry you went through all of that alone. I am sorry I was not there for any of it. You chose not to be there," Sophia reminded him. "I chose wrong," Anthony said. "I thought I was protecting you. Instead, I abandoned you when you needed me most. I left you vulnerable and struggling while I convinced myself I was being noble." They were close now, Sophia realized. Somehow during the conversation they had drifted together, the distance between them shrinking until only inches separated them. She could count his eyelashes, could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow that she had kissed 1,000 times in another life. "I cannot forgive you," Sophia whispered. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." "I am not asking for forgiveness," Anthony replied, his voice low and rough. "I am asking for a chance to be the father Lorenzo deserves, to be the man you both deserve, to do better than I did 5 years ago." "What if better is not possible?" Sophia asked. "What if your world is still too dangerous? What if nothing has really changed?" "Everything has changed," Anthony said. "I have a son. I have you back in my life even if you hate me. That changes everything." They were too close now, breathing the same air, the heat between them building until Sophia felt dizzy from it. Anthony's hand lifted slowly, fingers brushing against her cheek with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man capable of such violence. "Sophia," he murmured, her name a question and a prayer. She leaned forward, closing the final distance, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted like wine and regret and possibility. His hand slid into her hair, cupping the back of her head. Her hands fisted in his sweater, pulling him closer, needing more contact, more proof that this was real. The kiss deepened, years of anger and longing pouring into it. Anthony's other hand found her waist, his thumb tracing circles against her hip through the thin fabric of her cardigan. Sophia made a sound low in her throat, something between a moan and a sob, her body remembering his touch even as her mind screamed warnings. Then footsteps thundered on the stairs, sharp and urgent. They broke apart as Vincent burst into the living room, his face tight with barely controlled panic. "We have a problem," Vincent said without preamble. "Roberto found the location. I do not know how he broke through our security protocols, but he has the address. We have 10 minutes, maybe 15 before his people arrive." Anthony was on his feet instantly, all softness vanishing. "Route 7, he ordered. "Not Route 3. Get the vehicles ready. Alert the perimeter team. I want a clean evacuation, no contact." "Already in motion," Vincent confirmed. "But boss, we need to move now." Sophia stood on trembling legs, the wine and the kiss making her unsteady. "Lorenzo, go," Anthony said, already moving toward the study where weapons were locked in a safe. She had pretended not to notice. "Get him ready. Do not pack anything. Just grab him and go. Vincent will take you directly to the Manhattan property." Sophia ran for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time despite the wine making her coordination imperfect. She burst into Lorenzo's room where he slept peacefully in his race car bed, his stuffed elephant clutched against his chest. For a moment she just stared at him, memorizing the innocence on his sleeping face, the way his dark lashes rested against his cheeks. Then she scooped him up, blanket and elephant and all, holding him against her shoulder. He made a small sound of protest, but did not fully wake, his body going limp and heavy with the boneless trust of sleeping children. Vincent met her at the bottom of the stairs, his large hand gentle on her back as he guided her toward the garage. Anthony appeared from another direction carrying 2 bags, one Sophia recognized as hers, the other smaller, filled with Lorenzo's things. "The Connecticut house," Sophia said as they moved. "All Lorenzo's toys, his books." "Already handled," Anthony said. "A team will collect everything and bring it to Manhattan. He will not lose anything that matters." They were in the car within 3 minutes of Vincent's initial warning. Sophia sat in the back with Lorenzo secured in a car seat that must have been installed at some point during their stay, one more detail Anthony had anticipated and prepared for. Anthony followed in a separate vehicle with 3 men Sophia did not recognize. Security that had been there all along, invisible until needed. The drive through dark Connecticut roads felt endless. Lorenzo woke about 30 minutes in, his small face confused and frightened in the dim glow of passing streetlights. "Mommy?" His voice was small, scared. "Where are we going? Why did we leave?" "We are going somewhere different," Sophia said, stroking his hair with shaking fingers. "Somewhere even safer. Everything is okay, baby. I promise everything is okay." But Lorenzo was 4 years old enough to sense when adults were lying. "Are the bad people coming?" Sophia's breath caught. She had never explicitly told him there were bad people, but children absorbed more than parents realized. "No one is going to hurt you," she said firmly. "Your daddy and Uncle Vincent and I are making sure you stay safe." "My daddy," Lorenzo repeated, testing the word. "Anthony." "Yes," Sophia confirmed. "Anthony is your daddy." Lorenzo processed this in silence for several minutes. Then he asked, "Is he a good daddy?" Sophia looked out the window at darkness broken by occasional lights, at the world rushing past while they fled from threats she still did not fully understand. "Yes," she said quietly. "Yes. He is trying very hard to be a good daddy." They reached Manhattan after 2 hours of driving. The city rose around them, familiar and foreign at once. Vincent navigated through streets Sophia recognized, then down into an underground garage beneath a building that gleamed dark glass against the night sky. An elevator took them directly to a penthouse apartment. The doors opened onto a space that was modern and secure, all clean lines and muted colors. Not a home, Sophia thought immediately. A safe house. A place designed for function rather than comfort. Lorenzo was fully awake now, looking around with wide, frightened eyes. He had started crying softly, overwhelmed by the upheaval and confusion. Sophia held him tight, murmuring reassurances that felt hollow, even as she spoke them. Anthony emerged from the second elevator, his presence immediately filling the space. He crossed to them, moving slowly, deliberately, giving Lorenzo time to process his approach. Then he knelt down, bringing himself to Lorenzo's eye level. "Hey," Anthony said, his voice gentle in a way Sophia had never heard before. "I know this is scary. I know you do not understand what is happening. But you are safe here. Your mom is safe. Nothing bad is going to happen to either of you. I promise." Lorenzo looked at him with tears streaming down his face. "Who are you?" he asked, even though Sophia had told him, even though he knew. Anthony glanced up at Sophia. She nodded once, giving permission for something that would change everything irrevocably. "I am Anthony," he said to Lorenzo. "I am your father." Lorenzo's young mind worked through the concept visibly. "My daddy?" he asked. "Like the other kids have daddies?" "Yes," Anthony said, his voice breaking slightly. "Like that. I am your daddy." Lorenzo studied Anthony's face with the serious intensity children sometimes showed when processing important information. Then he stepped forward, closing the small distance between them, and wrapped his small arms around Anthony's neck. Anthony's eyes closed. His arms came up slowly, carefully, wrapping around his son for the first time. His large hands looked enormous against Lorenzo's small back, his face buried in Lorenzo's dark hair, breathing in the scent of his child. And Sophia saw his shoulders shake with emotion he could no longer contain. She pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her own face, watching the two people she loved most in the world hold each other for the first time, watching Anthony discover what it meant to be a father, watching Lorenzo discover what it meant to be claimed and wanted and protected. Vincent stood near the door, his own eyes suspiciously bright. When he caught Sophia looking, he nodded once, a gesture of respect and understanding. This was real now. This was no longer temporary or theoretical. Anthony was Lorenzo's father not just biologically, but emotionally, practically, in every way that mattered. And that knowledge changed the equation of everything that would come next. The Manhattan penthouse became their new prison disguised as safety. Days blurred into each other, each one measured by Lorenzo's online school sessions and the reports Vincent delivered in low voices behind closed doors. Sophia worked from a makeshift office, translated documents, maintained the fiction of normalcy while her nerves stretched tighter with each passing hour. Anthony disappeared for long stretches during the day, returning with tension coiled in his shoulders and darkness in his eyes. He never said where he went or what he was planning, but Sophia saw the strategy taking shape in the way he moved, in the phone calls conducted in rooms with closed doors, in the way Vincent's visits became more frequent and more urgent. 3 weeks after they arrived in Manhattan, Sophia woke to find Anthony already gone. She checked Lorenzo's room, found him still sleeping with his elephant clutched tight, then wandered to the kitchen where coffee was already brewed. A note sat beside the pot in Anthony's precise handwriting. "Staying at office today. Vincent will be with you. Don't worry. Don't worry." As if that were possible. As if she had not spent 3 weeks jumping at every unexpected sound, checking over her shoulder constantly, her body vibrating with the anticipation of violence that never came but felt inevitable. She poured coffee, stood at the window looking out at the city spread beneath her. Somewhere in those streets, Roberto Ferraro was planning his next move. Somewhere, Anthony was planning his counter. And Sophia stood between them, powerless and frustrated by her own helplessness. Vincent arrived at 9, his face carefully neutral. "Morning, Ms. Mitchell." "Lorenzo awake yet?" "Still sleeping," Sophia replied. "Anthony left early." "Business," Vincent said, the word encompassing everything and revealing nothing. Sophia studied him over her coffee cup. "What kind of business?" "The kind that keeps you both safe," Vincent replied. "I am tired of being kept safe," Sophia said, setting her cup down with more force than necessary. "I am tired of being protected and managed and kept in the dark about decisions that affect my life, and my son's life." Vincent's expression softened slightly. "I understand your frustration." "Do you?" Sophia challenged. "Do you really? Because from where I stand, you and Anthony are making plans that involve me without actually including me. I am not a chess piece to be moved around the board. No one thinks you are," Vincent said carefully. "Then tell me what is happening," Sophia demanded. "Tell me what Anthony is planning." Vincent hesitated, loyalty warring with sympathy across his features. "I cannot. He would have my head." Sophia was about to press further when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it, frowning. "Warehouse meeting tonight, 8 p.m., Brooklyn Docks. Be there if you want answers." Her blood went cold. She looked up at Vincent, who had moved closer, reading the message over her shoulder. His face darkened immediately. "Who sent that?" he demanded. "I do not know," Sophia said, but her mind was racing. Someone wanted her at that warehouse. Someone wanted her present for whatever was about to happen. Vincent was already on his phone, speaking rapidly to someone. When he ended the call, his expression was grim. "Anthony set up a meeting with Roberto Ferraro tonight, neutral territory. He was not planning to tell you." "Of course he was not," Sophia said bitterly. "Because heaven forbid I actually participate in my own life. He was trying to protect you from..." "From what?" Sophia interrupted. "From the truth? From seeing the man who manipulated me for months?" From getting answers about why any of this happened? From danger, Vincent said firmly. These meetings can turn violent quickly. Anthony did not want you anywhere near it. Too bad, Sophia said, her decision crystallizing. I am going. Ms. Mitchell, I am going, Sophia repeated. Either you take me, or I will call a car service and go alone. Your choice. Vincent stared at her, clearly calculating options. Anthony will kill me. Anthony can get in line, Sophia replied. I have been passive for too long, Vincent. I have let men make decisions about my life, about my safety, about what I am capable of handling. I am done with that. I need to see Roberto Ferraro face to face. I need to hear from him why he did this. Vincent exhaled slowly. Lorenzo cannot come. Obviously, Sophia agreed. He stays here with your best people. People who will die before they let anything happen to him. Already arranged, Vincent said. I will have 3 of our most trusted guards here. Former special forces. They will not leave his side. And I wear whatever protective gear you think is necessary. Sophia continued. I follow your instructions. I stay where you tell me to stay. But I am there, Vincent. I am in that room. Vincent studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Bulletproof vest. You wear it under your clothes. You stay exactly where I position you, which will be behind Anthony and myself. You do not speak unless spoken to directly. And if I tell you to get down or run or do anything, you do it immediately without question. Agreed, Sophia said. The hours until 8 o'clock crawled past with agonizing slowness. Sophia explained to Lorenzo that she had an important work meeting, that Uncle Vincent's friends would stay with him for the evening. Lorenzo accepted this with the trusting ease of childhood, more interested in the action figures one of the guards brought than in his mother's obvious tension. Vincent returned at 6 with a thin, bulletproof vest that he helped her put on under a dark sweater. It was lighter than she expected, but made her movements feel constrained, a constant reminder of the danger she was walking toward. Anthony is going to lose his mind when he sees you, Vincent warned as they drove through Brooklyn toward the docks. Good, Sophia said. Let him be angry. I am angry too. The warehouse appeared gradually through the darkness, a renovated structure that stood among other industrial buildings like a wolf among sheep. Light spilled from high windows. Several expensive cars were parked outside, including one Sophia recognized as Anthony's. Vincent parked, then turned to face her. Last chance to change your mind. Not a chance, Sophia replied. They entered through a side door. The interior of the warehouse was surprisingly finished. Exposed brick walls and polished concrete floors, industrial lighting casting harsh shadows. A large open space served as the main area, with offices along one wall and what looked like a conference room in the back. Anthony stood in the center of the space with 3 men Sophia did not recognize. His back was to the door, but the moment it opened, his entire body went rigid. He turned slowly, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and resignation in rapid succession. Sophia, he said, his voice dangerous. What are you doing here? Getting answers, Sophia replied, moving further into the space despite Vincent's hand on her arm urging caution. Answers you were not planning to give me. This is not safe, Anthony said, closing the distance between them in 3 long strides. You should not be here. And yet here I am, Sophia said, lifting her chin. Deal with it. Anthony looked at Vincent. I told you to keep her at the apartment. She was determined, Vincent said simply. Would have come alone if I did not bring her. You should have stopped her. Anthony growled. Have you met her? Vincent replied. Stopping her requires more force than I was willing to use. Anthony's jaw clenched, but before he could respond, the main entrance opened. Roberto Ferraro walked in flanked by 5 men in expensive suits that did not quite hide the weapons they carried. His eyes swept the warehouse, landing on Anthony first, then sliding to Sophia. His smile was cold and sharp. Anthony, Roberto said, his accent thickening slightly. You did not mention you would be bringing guests. Sophia is not a guest, Anthony replied. She is family, and she has questions for you. Roberto's smile widened. Does she now? How fascinating. And what questions could you possibly have for me, my dear? Sophia stepped forward despite Anthony's hand shooting out to stop her. Why me? Why did you target me specifically? Is it not obvious? Roberto asked, moving closer with predatory grace. You were Anthony Versiani's greatest weakness, his former wife, the woman he loved enough to marry, loved enough to destroy himself pushing away. Finding you was like finding a loaded gun pointed directly at his heart. You researched me, Sophia said. You planned our meeting. You pretended to care about me. All of it was manipulation. All of it was strategy, Roberto corrected. Nothing personal, you understand. You were simply the most effective tool available. She is not a tool, Anthony said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. She is a person, a mother, someone who did nothing to deserve being caught in whatever game you think we are playing. Roberto laughed, the sound echoing in the cavernous space. Game? This is no game, Anthony. This is war. Where you started when you refused to accept the new order 5 years ago? 5 years ago, Sophia repeated, the timeline clicking into place. When Anthony's brother died, Roberto turned his full attention to her, something glittering in his eyes. Ah, she is clever. Yes, 5 years ago, when Marco Versiani became an obstacle to my expansion into Brooklyn territories, when he refused to recognize that his family's time was ending and mine was beginning. The warehouse went absolutely silent. Sophia felt the air change, felt Anthony go completely still beside her, with the stillness of a predator about to strike. You, Anthony said, each word precise and cold. You killed Marco. I coordinated the ambush. Yes. Roberto confirmed casually, as if discussing the weather. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, defending territory that was already lost. A shame, really. He was young. He could have chosen to step aside. Sophia watched Anthony's face, saw rage and grief war beneath his controlled exterior. His hands clenched into fists, his entire body coiling with violence barely restrained. You have wanted a confession, Roberto continued, enjoying the moment. Here it is. I killed your brother. I researched your ex-wife. I discovered your son through medical records that were not as secure as you thought. I orchestrated everything to position myself with leverage you could not refuse, and it would have worked perfectly if she had not started pulling away. He gestured toward Sophia with casual dismissal. The plan was simple, Roberto explained. Use them to force territorial concessions. Get what I needed. Then eliminate them both so they could not be used against me by anyone else. Clean, efficient, final. Sophia's legs nearly gave out. He had planned to kill her. To kill Lorenzo, not as punishment or revenge, but as simple strategy, as cleaning up loose ends. Vincent's hand closed around her elbow, steadying her. Anthony had moved between Sophia and Roberto without her noticing, his body a wall of protection. You made a mistake, Anthony said quietly. Did I? Roberto asked, amused. I do not see how. I hold all the advantages. You told me everything, Anthony replied. You confessed to murder, to conspiracy, to attempted kidnapping, and you did it in a warehouse that has been recording every word. Roberto's smile faltered. His eyes darted around the space, noting for the first time the small cameras hidden in the industrial lighting, the recording equipment disguised as structural elements. You have no proof that will hold in court, Roberto said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. I have 6 months of compiled evidence, Anthony said. Financial records, recorded phone calls, testimony from people you thought were loyal, but who valued their freedom more than your money. And now I have your confession. In your own words, describing in detail your murder of my brother and your plans to kill an innocent woman and child. Roberto's hand moved toward his jacket. Vincent and the 3 men with Anthony moved simultaneously, weapons appearing with practiced speed. The 5 men Roberto had brought raised their own weapons, creating a standoff of deadly potential. Do not, Anthony said, his voice sharp as a blade. You are already done, Roberto. The question is whether you go down alone or take your men with you. For a long moment, nobody moved. Tension stretched thin enough to snap. Then Roberto's hand slowly withdrew from his jacket, empty. Smart choice, Anthony said. He gestured to Vincent. Collect his weapon. Vincent moved forward carefully, disarming Roberto with efficient movements. The other men followed suit, collecting weapons from Roberto's security until they stood unarmed and furious in the middle of the warehouse. "This proves nothing," Roberto said. "You are just as criminal as I am. Your evidence means nothing when you obtained it through illegal means." "You are right," Anthony agreed, "which is why none of this evidence will have my name attached to it. It will be delivered anonymously to federal prosecutors through a civil rights attorney with no connection to me or my businesses. They will receive everything tomorrow morning. By tomorrow afternoon, federal warrants will be issued. By tomorrow evening, you will be in custody." Roberto's face went white. "You cannot do this. It is already done," Anthony said. "The only question is whether you want to spend your last hours of freedom standing here arguing or whether you want to run. Not that running will help." Roberto looked at Sophia, something desperate entering his expression. You could speak for me. Tell them I never hurt you, that this was all business between men." "You planned to kill my son," Sophia said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "You planned to kill me. You used me, manipulated me, threatened me, and you think I would help you?" She stepped closer to Anthony, making her position clear. Roberto's expression hardened into cold fury. He turned toward the door, his remaining men following. At the threshold, he looked back. "This is not over, Verciani," he said. "Yes," Anthony replied. "It is." Roberto left, the door slamming behind him. The moment he was gone, Anthony turned to Sophia, his hands coming up to frame her face. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "Did he touch you?" "I am fine," Sophia said, though her entire body was shaking now that the confrontation was over. "I am fine. We are fine." Anthony pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. "You should not have been here. You should not have heard any of that." "I needed to hear it," Sophia said into his shirt. "I needed to understand what we were caught in." "Now you know," Anthony said. "Now you know exactly how dangerous my world is. Now you know why I pushed you away 5 years ago." Sophia pulled back enough to look up at him. "And now I also know that you have been trying to protect us all along, that you gave up evidence and leverage and probably safety to take Roberto down the right way instead of the violent way. I could not kill him in front of you," Anthony said simply. "And I needed to make sure he went away permanently, not just temporarily. This was the only way." Vincent cleared his throat. "Boss, we should move. Roberto might do something desperate." Anthony nodded, but his arms did not release Sophia. "Take us back to Lorenzo. I need to see my son. I need to know he is safe." They drove through the night in tense silence. Sophia pressed against Anthony's side in the back seat, his arm around her shoulders, holding her like something precious he had almost lost. When they reached the apartment, Lorenzo was asleep on the couch, a guard sitting nearby reading a book. Anthony crossed to his son, knelt beside the couch, placed one hand on Lorenzo's small back just to feel him breathing. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching the man who had once pushed her away, now claiming what was his, with quiet desperation. Vincent moved close enough to speak quietly. "The evidence will be delivered in 4 hours. By noon tomorrow, this will be over." "Will it?" Sophia asked. "Or will there just be new threats, new dangers? There will always be risks," Vincent admitted. "But today, you took away his biggest weapon. You survived. You got your answers. That matters." Sophia nodded slowly, exhausted beyond words. Anthony lifted Lorenzo carefully, carrying him to his bedroom. Sophia followed, watched him tuck their son in with gentle hands, watched him smooth back dark hair so like his own. "He is safe," Anthony said quietly, more to himself than to her. "They are both safe. That is all that matters." And Sophia, watching him, realized that maybe it was possible to rebuild from ruins after all. 9 months had passed since the warehouse confrontation. 9 months since Roberto Ferraro had been arrested by federal agents at his Tribeca penthouse, charged with conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, money laundering, and a list of other crimes that would ensure he spent the next 2 decades behind bars. 9 months since Sophia had started breathing without constantly checking over her shoulder. She still maintained her apartment in Queens. Hannah had been shocked when Sophia finally returned after months of vague explanations, even more shocked to learn the truth about Anthony, about Lorenzo's father, about the danger they had been hiding from. But Hannah was a good friend, the kind who asked fewer questions than she probably wanted to, and simply helped Sophia pack up her belongings for the slow migration to Manhattan. Sophia spent 4 nights a week at Anthony's penthouse now. Her apartment served as office space mostly, a place where she could work without distraction, maintain her independence, and her sense of self beyond being Anthony's ex-wife or Lorenzo's mother. She had expanded her translation business, hired 2 other freelancers to help with overflow, established a reputation for reliability and quality that brought steady work from publishing houses and legal firms. The progression back to Anthony had been slow and deliberate. Neither of them pretended the past 5 years could be erased or that trust could be rebuilt overnight. They attended family therapy sessions, sometimes together, sometimes separately, unpacking trauma and mistakes and the complicated reality of 2 people who had loved each other, destroyed each other, and were now trying to find a path forward. Lorenzo thrived in the chaos. He attended an excellent private school near the penthouse, made friends with the easy social grace of children who did not yet understand class divisions. He had sleepovers and birthday parties and playdates in Central Park. Anthony had hired a child psychologist who specialized in helping children adjust to family restructuring, ensuring Lorenzo processed everything in healthy ways. This particular Saturday morning found them in the penthouse kitchen. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the marble countertops where Sophia was preparing pancakes while Anthony made coffee. Lorenzo sat at the breakfast bar in his pajamas, coloring a picture with intense concentration, his tongue poking out the corner of his mouth the way it always did when he focused hard on something. "Can we go to the park today?" Lorenzo asked without looking up from his drawing. "Maya said her dad is taking her to the playground and she wants me to come too." "We can do that," Sophia confirmed, flipping a pancake. "After breakfast and after you get dressed." "Can Dad come too?" Lorenzo asked, still focused on his coloring. The kitchen went completely silent. Sophia's hand froze mid-flip. Anthony's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. It was the first time Lorenzo had called Anthony anything other than his name. The first time he had used that word, that title, that claim of relationship. "Did you just call me Dad?" Anthony asked, his voice rough. Lorenzo finally looked up, confused by the sudden tension. "Yeah. Is that okay? Because you are my dad, right? So I should call you Dad instead of Anthony." Anthony set his coffee cup down carefully, like his hands were not quite steady enough to hold it. "Yes, that is okay. That is very okay." "Cool," Lorenzo said, returning to his drawing, as if he had not just fundamentally altered the emotional landscape of the room. Sophia watched Anthony's face, saw him blinking rapidly, saw his jaw clench with the effort of maintaining control. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against tile. "I need to check something in my office," he said, his voice strained. "Be right back." He left quickly, not quite running but close. Sophia finished the pancakes, plated them for Lorenzo with syrup and strawberries arranged the way he liked, then followed the path Anthony had taken. She found him in his office, standing at the window overlooking the city, both hands braced against the glass, his shoulders rising and falling with deep breaths. She closed the door quietly behind her. "Anthony," she said softly. "He called me Dad." Anthony said without turning. "My son called me Dad." "I heard," Sophia replied, moving closer. "Are you okay?" "I do not know," Anthony admitted. He turned to face her, and she saw his eyes were wet. "For 5 years I thought I would never have this, never hear that word directed at me, never get to be a father to him. And now he just says it like it is the most natural thing in the world. Because to him it is natural," Sophia said, stopping in front of him. "You have been in his life every day for months now. You read to him at night. You help with his homework. You take him to school. You are his dad in every way that matters." He was just waiting for the right moment to say it out loud. Anthony reached out, his hands framing Sophia's face, with a gentleness that still surprised her sometimes. "I do not deserve this. I do not deserve either of you." "Maybe not," Sophia agreed. "But you are trying to. That has to count for something. I want to do this right." Anthony said urgently. I want to build something real with you. With him. Not the broken thing we had before. Something better. Something that lasts. Sophia covered his hands with her own. Then we need to be honest about what that looks like. No more secrets. No more decisions made without including me. No more pushing people away to protect them. Agreed, Anthony said immediately. Complete transparency. You are part of every decision that affects Lorenzo, that affects us. I will not shut you out again. And Lorenzo gets a normal childhood, Sophia continued. He goes to regular school, plays with regular kids, has a life that is not defined by your business or your world. When he is an adult, if he wants to be involved in what you do, that is his choice. But until then, he is just a kid. Just a kid, Anthony repeated, nodding. I can give him that. I want to give him that. And therapy, Sophia added. For all of us. We keep going. Keep working through everything. Keep learning how to be a family. Whatever it takes, Anthony promised. Whatever you need. Sophia pulled his hands down from her face but did not let go. I am not saying this will be easy. I am not saying I have forgiven everything. But I am saying I want to try. I want to see if we can build something from all these broken pieces. Anthony's eyes searched hers, intense and vulnerable in equal measure. I will spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. You better, Sophia said, a small smile touching her lips. Because Lorenzo is never going to let you go now that he has claimed you as his dad. Anthony laughed, the sound breaking through the emotion that had been choking him. He pulled Sophia closer, pressing his forehead against hers, breathing her in. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Even when I was destroying us. I just want you to know that. I know, Sophia whispered. I think I always knew. They stood like that for several minutes, holding each other in the morning light, rebuilding trust one moment at a time. That afternoon found them in Central Park. Lorenzo ran ahead on the path, his small legs pumping with the endless energy of childhood, chasing after a soccer ball Anthony had brought. Vincent walked at a discreet distance behind them, security disguised as a casual Saturday stroll. Other families dotted the park, parents pushing strollers and children climbing playground equipment, the ordinary rhythms of city life. Sophia and Anthony walked side by side, hands occasionally brushing, but not quite holding, navigating the physical distance that still sometimes felt awkward after so long apart. I have been thinking about the Connecticut property, Anthony said as they walked. The house where we stayed. It is secure, isolated, but it could be renovated into something more family-friendly. A summer house, maybe. Somewhere Lorenzo could spend weekends, explore nature, have space to run without security hovering constantly. He would love that, Sophia said, imagining Lorenzo running through forests, learning to identify trees and animals. He is so much a city kid right now. Exposure to different environments would be good for him. And I have been thinking about your business, Anthony continued. You mentioned wanting to expand, hire more people. I own a small office building in Midtown that has available space. I could lease it to you at cost, give you room to grow without the overhead crushing your startup. Sophia stopped walking, turning to face him. I do not want your charity, Anthony. It is not charity, he insisted. It is investment. You are talented and hardworking, and you have built something real on your own. I just want to help you take it to the next level without compromising your independence. Sophia studied his face, looking for hidden agendas or controlling motivations. She found only genuine support, and perhaps a desire to contribute something positive after so many years of absence. At cost, she repeated. Not free. I pay market rate, or I do not take it. Negotiable, Anthony countered. We can discuss terms. Fine, Sophia agreed. We can discuss. They resumed walking, catching up to where Lorenzo had stopped to examine something on the ground, probably an interesting bug or a particularly shaped rock. Vincent had moved closer, keeping watch while allowing the illusion of freedom. He is good with him, Sophia observed, watching Vincent crouch down to look at whatever Lorenzo had found. Lorenzo trusts him. Vincent raised 3 daughters, Anthony said. They are grown now, living their own lives. I think he missed having children around. Lorenzo gives him an outlet for that. I did not know he had children, Sophia admitted. There is a lot you do not know yet, Anthony said. But we have time. We have all the time in the world now. Lorenzo called to them, waving excitedly. They jogged over to find him holding a smooth stone that was perfectly round, exactly the kind of treasure that meant everything to a 4-year-old. Look what I found, Lorenzo exclaimed. Can I keep it? Of course, Sophia said, ruffling his hair. You can start a collection. Uncle Vincent says if I find 5 perfectly round ones, he will give me a prize, Lorenzo added. Then we better keep looking, Anthony said, kneeling down beside his son. What do you think? Should we search near the pond? Rocks by water are usually smoother. Yeah, Lorenzo agreed enthusiastically, already running in that direction. Anthony stood, offering his hand to Sophia. She took it this time, letting their fingers intertwine as they followed their son toward the pond. The afternoon sun was warm on her face, the park alive with sounds of people living ordinary lives, experiencing ordinary joys. Anthony pulled her close as they walked, pressing a kiss to her temple that held no urgency, no desperation, just quiet affection earned through months of rebuilding trust. Sophia leaned into him, allowing herself to hope that maybe this time, with work and honesty and commitment, they could actually make it last. Later that evening, after Lorenzo was asleep and Sophia was reading in the living room, Vincent arrived with a leather portfolio. He handed it to Anthony with a nod that conveyed weight and finality. The last of it, Vincent said. Everything closed. Anthony opened the portfolio, scanning documents. Sophia watched from the couch as his expression cycled through satisfaction, relief, and something like exhaustion. When he finished reading, he closed the portfolio and set it aside. Roberto? He asked. Sentenced to 23 years. No possibility of parole. Multiple counts of conspiracy, murder, racketeering. The prosecutor said it was one of the most comprehensive cases they had ever received. They are still investigating his organization, but the head is gone. And the territories? Anthony asked. Stable. The Russians backed off after Roberto's arrest. The others are maintaining their current boundaries. No one wants the attention federal investigation brings. We have peace, at least for now. Peace, Anthony repeated, as if testing the word. When was the last time we had that? 5 years, Vincent said. Maybe longer. Anthony nodded slowly. Thank you. For everything. For keeping them safe. For trusting my plan even when it looked insane. You are my brother in everything but blood, Vincent said simply. Of course I trusted you. After Vincent left, Anthony filed the portfolio in his study safe, locking away the final pieces of the war that had defined the past year. When he returned to the living room, he found Sophia had moved to Lorenzo's room, sitting on the edge of the race car bed, reading a story in the soft glow of the nightlight. Lorenzo was already asleep, but Sophia continued reading anyway, her voice a gentle murmur. Anthony stood in the doorway, watching them. This picture of domestic peace that he had almost destroyed 5 years ago through misguided attempts at protection. Power had always been Anthony's currency. Control, influence, the ability to move people and resources like chess pieces on a board. But standing there watching his son sleep and the woman he loved read to him despite the fact that he could not hear, Anthony realized that all the power in the world meant nothing compared to this quiet moment, this ordinary evening. This family that had somehow survived everything and found their way back to each other. Sophia finished the chapter, closed the book, and looked up. She saw him standing there, saw something in his expression that made her hold out her hand in silent invitation. Anthony crossed the room, taking her hand, letting her pull him down to sit beside her on the edge of the bed. Together they looked at Lorenzo, at the small miracle of his existence, at the future sleeping peacefully between them. We did it. Sophia whispered. We actually survived. We did more than survive, Anthony replied, his arm coming around her shoulders. We found our way home. They sat in silence for several more minutes, just breathing, just existing in the moment. Then Sophia stood, pulling Anthony with her, leading him out of the room and back to the living room where normal life waited. where work deadlines and grocery lists and parent-teacher conferences created the mundane foundation of happiness. The past would always be there, scarred tissue that served as reminder and warning. But the future stretched ahead full of possibility. School plays and birthday parties and family dinners, arguments about homework and negotiations about bedtime, the ordinary struggles and joys of building a life together. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and challenges and moments when old wounds reopened, but they would face them together, as partners, as parents, as two people who had learned the hard way that love without trust was nothing, but trust earned back was everything. Anthony pulled Sophia onto the couch beside him, and she settled against his shoulder with the easy comfort of someone finally home. Outside the windows, the city glowed with lights and possibilities. Inside, in the warmth of the penthouse, a family rebuilt itself one quiet moment at a time. And that, after everything, was more than either of them had dared to hope for.